Hello, I'm Edgar Allan Poe, and welcome to the Poe House. We're going to be bringing you some nice programs, readings from my works, every week from now on. And we hope you enjoy them, and we hope you'll turn in regularly. And I'd really like you to come see my real house on Amity Street in Baltimore. The information's on the screen, and we hope we'll see you there some weekend.
Welcome to my home. Hello, welcome to my home.
You have a beautiful home.
Thank you so much. Very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind welcoming.
Thank you very much. Thanks for back into my home.
Thank you all for joining us this morning at this exciting event. And I would like to thank the residents of the Poe homes for welcoming us into their neighborhood. My name is Kristen Harbison, and it is my great pleasure and privilege to be the president of Poe Baltimore, the new nonprofit that has been formed to explore, to celebrate, and to protect the legacy of Edgar Allan Poe in Baltimore and beyond. And especially to open this house, this National Historic Landmark, to the public. Over the last year, Poe Baltimore has been hard at work preparing to reopen this house, the home of one of Baltimore's most famous residents, Edgar Allan Poe. Today we are proud to give you the first glimpse of the work that we've been doing, of this refreshed museum. Would the members of the board please stand and be recognized? Give a shout. There has never been a more talented, dedicated, and hard-working group of individuals, and as we move into the next chapter of the Poe House, you can be assured that with this board at the helm, the house is in very good hands. Of course, any effort of this kind relies on the contributions of countless friends and supporters. I would like to thank Free Fall Baltimore for the grant that will allow the doors to open every weekend this month for free, and PNC Bank for their sponsorship of their event this morning. Greenfield Nursery donated the beautiful mums. And of course, I would like to thank Mayor Stephanie Rawlings-Blake and the City of Baltimore for their strong support and for their faithful stewardship of the Edgar Allan Poe House and our city's cultural history. Deputy Mayor Calliope Parthimos, the Departments of Planning, of Housing, of General Services, the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation, have all dedicated both time and resources to the Edgar Allan Poe House and to Poe Baltimore. Visit Baltimore and the Baltimore Office of Promotion of the Arts have both been invaluable partners, as has the library. We in Baltimore are very lucky to have such organizations so dedicated to the quality of life in our city and to showing visitors to our city all that we have to offer. If you have been to our website, www.poe.baltimore.org, you have seen the work of Digital Harbor High School and the Digital Harbor Foundation. If you haven't been, I highly recommend you check it out. It is beautiful. Our friends at GiveCorps have stepped up early to help us raise money in the essential work of fundraising for the sustained health of the house, and we are beyond grateful for their assistance. I'd like to recognize Councilman Welsh, who joined us from the City Council. Where'd he go? Following this program, you'll have the opportunity to see the extraordinary work of our partners at Baltimore Performance Kitchen. I would like, too, to recognize the efforts of Jeff Jerome, whose dedication to the legacy of Edgar Allan Poe and the Poe House behind me is unparalleled. No one has done more work to draw attention to the Poe legacy of Baltimore than its curator emeritus. And he continues to be a friend of the house and of Poe Baltimore. Courtney Wilson and the staff of the B&O Museum have been stalwart supporters, friends, and advisors as the board coalesced over the past year. And the superb staff of the museum have been invaluable in every aspect of the work done with this house. Kate Scher Adams has been an essential part of the team over the past 6 weeks, shepherding the board to this point and collecting a dedicated team of volunteers. Finally, and most importantly, I would like to thank you for coming, for your interest, your passion, your dedication to the Edgar Allan Poe and to this house. This is a community effort, and it will succeed because of your passion and your support. As we move forward, we will be looking, of course, for your contributions. of money, yes, but also of your ideas, your energy. We are the stewards of this house on your behalf, and it is a solemn responsibility. It was in this house where ideas and dreams, stories were dreamt and written, where the Poe family lived and loved, and where Edgar Allan Poe first found a home. It is our fervent wish that this house will continue to be a source of inspiration, of stories, of dreams, and of community.
Welcome to my house, the Poe house, the Cask of Amontillado. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length, I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled, but the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not punish, but must punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected and feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity, to practice imposture upon the British and Austrian millionaires. In painting and gemmary, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack, but in the matter of old wines he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk, one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you look today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! And in the middle of the carnival?" "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado? I have my doubts." "Amontillado?" And I must satisfy them. "Amontillado? As you are so enraged, I am on my way to Lucchese. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me. Lucchese cannot tell Amontillado from sherry. And yet, some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go." "Whither?" "To your vaults." "My friend, no. I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucchese, I have no engagement. Come." "My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitre. Let us go nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon, and as for Lucchese, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado." Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm. and putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at my home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, once and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together upon the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," he said. "'Tis farther on," said I, "but observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls." He turned towards me and looked into my eyes with 2 filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication. "Nitra?" he asked at length. "Nitra," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. "Come," I said with decision, "we will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, and admired, beloved. You are happy, as once was I. You are a man to be missed. For me, it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucrezi." "Enough," he said. "The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough." "True, true," I replied. And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper precaution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from the damps. Here, I knocked off the neck of a bottle which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mold. "Drink," I said, presenting him with the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly, while his bells jingled. "I drink," he said, "to the buried that repose around us, and I to your long life." He again took my arm, and we proceeded. "These vaults," he said, "are extensive." "The Montresors," I replied, "were a great and numerous family." "I forgot your arms." "A huge human foot d'or in the field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel." "And the motto?" "Nemo me impune lacesset." "Good," he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. We had passed through the long walls of piled skeletons, with casks and puncheons intermingling into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. "The Nitra," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough—" "It is nothing," he said. "Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc." I broke and reached him a flagon of de Grave. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. "You do not comprehend?" he said. "Not I," I replied. "Then you are not of the Brotherhood." "How?" "You are not of the Masons." "Yes, yes," I said. "Yes, yes. You? Impossible. A Mason?" "A Mason," I replied. "A sign," he said, "a sign. It is this," I answered. producing from beneath the folds of my roquelaire a trowel. "You jest," he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. "But let us proceed to the Amontillado." "Be it so," I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and, descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeaux rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th side, the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the walls thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior crypt or recess, in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no special use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and it was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depth of the recess. Its termination, the feeble light did not enable us to see. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchese—" "He is an ignoramus," interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and, finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. "Pass your hand," I said, "over the wall. You cannot help feeling the nitre. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. Now, then, I must positively leave you. But first, I must render you all the little attentions in my power." "The Amontillado!" ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. "True," I replied, "the Amontillado." As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I before have spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the 2nd tier, and the 3rd, and the 4th, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the cranking subsided, I resumed the trowel, and finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breath. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the masonwork, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment, I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess. But the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamor grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head, and it was succeeded by a sad voice which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha ha, hee hee hee, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Hee hee hee. Over our wine. Hee hee hee. The Amontillado," I said. Hee hee hee. Hee hee hee. Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will not they be awaiting us at the palazzo, the Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, I said. Let us be gone. For the love of God, mon trésor. Yes, I said, for the love of God. But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato!" No answer. I called again, "Fortunato!" No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half-century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiescat. And it was very exciting for me that they've recently reopened the Poe House. And I hope you'll have a look at it, and have a look at this also.
You can imagine him sitting in the chair with the writing desk on his lap, writing MS in a Bottle, which was one of his first writings, which was written while he was in this house.
Wow. Wow. And do we know what other of his works were written here?
Oh, there are several, and we've got a list of them written through on exhibit in the house. But this was the first place that he really considered to be home.
And I'm here with Doreen Bolter, who is the director of the Baltimore Museum of Art. Good afternoon. Yeah, isn't this a great day?
It's fantastic to be here on this beautiful day and see so many different people from different parts of the city and the city's cultural and historical organizations and the community here together.
Yes, it is. And is the Baltimore Museum of Art involved in any way with the Poe House effort?
Well, we're not directly involved with the Poe House effort, but we are admirers of Poe. We participated in Nevermore 2009, which was organized by Visit Baltimore and which raised, I think, the citywide awareness of how important Poe is to our history.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, we had an exhibition at the museum that featured images of Poe, portraits of Poe, as well as illustrations of his story and different works of art that were inspired by his writings. And a very active programming attached to that took up topics around, but for example, one of the categories of the exhibition were love and loss, madness and obsession, fear and terror. So we, under the obsession category, we had a public program on addiction, and a full house audience gathered to talk about that contemporary topic inspired by what Poe had written.
And you're participating today not just as a visitor, but as a speaker.
Yes, I think I was invited because I'm passionate about Poe and his importance to Baltimore and the ways in which he will continue to inspire us in the future.
All right, well, thanks very much for taking the time to speak with us.
This was really fun, and thank you for covering it.
Annabel Lee. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love which was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. Well, I hope you enjoyed my reading here today, and that about wraps it up this time.